Hey guys, how's it going? It's Al. There is a fantastic Monday Night Football game, and we're going to talk about everything that you need to know about this Week 5 DraftKings Showdown game between the Raiders and the Kansas City Chiefs. Big total in this one. The Chiefs have a team total of 29.5 expected points. 51.5 is the total. Chiefs favored by 7. Loads of all-pro players that we can use in the captain spot and a couple of sleepers that you may want to think about as well. I'm going to go over every single bit of it and take a look at a pick'em on Underdog and how to utilize all of these different plays if you're using the Fantasy Labs optimizer. Let's go.
He's a legend.
I definitely want to take a second to remind you that the recap video that I do every single Monday, going over my Best Buys article, all the players that I wrote up last week, looking at my cash game lineups and results, my tournament lineups, everything that we do from one week to the next, the winners of the Listener League, the top 10 from there, as well as the results of the Cage match exist on Al Smizzle Fantasy Football. You can go to smizzle.tv/ff. It will ask you if you wanted to subscribe to the channel automatically. All you have to do is go there or just search on YouTube for Al Smizzle Fantasy Football. It'll take you right here. Here's the week 3 recap. Here's all the week 4 videos, 5 videos a week on that channel, as well as the Rainmakers video, my fantasy football rankings for the week at quarterback, running back, wide receiver, and that very valuable recap video every single Monday. Definitely go give a subscribe over there. Don't miss any of the content that I come out with. And why don't we take a look over here at Underdog Fantasy? You can use promo code ALSMIZZLE, all one word, ALSMIZZLE. Go over there, take a look at all the best ball products that they have. Basketball coming up. They have leagues for that. They have the weekly battle royale, only $5 to get into a 6-round, 6-person draft to play some daily fantasy in a different way. But my favorite thing over there is the pick'ems during the season. And I've got a three burger for you here. I've got Patrick Mahomes over 305 total yards. That's rushing and passing. Travis Kelce over 6.5 receptions. I think he has a big night against the Raiders. And Derek Carr over 0.5. If he throws 1 interception, we win that one. We got to tick off all 3. I'll play this one for $50. We're going to try and win 300. Submit, confirm. Definitely go check out everything that they have over at Underdog Fantasy today. Checking out this slate, I'm going to start with the captains. I'm going to stay away from the quarterbacks for just a second. We'll talk about them in just a minute. I'm going to start with Davante Adams, who has seen a boatload of targets. Only week 2 has he seen less than double digits. 13 against Denver, 10 against Tennessee, 17 against the Chargers. Really only had that one big blow-up game in week 1 against the Chargers for 141 and a touchdown. He's going to exist at or around double-digit targets and 100 yards receiving. Him, JJ, Cooper Kupp, they're all kind of cut from the same cloth when it comes to the usage that they get. And obviously, it doesn't take like the best quarterback play in the world to get there, as long as you can get open and have the trust, and you're going to get a mountain of the targets that come in the passing game. Now, Hunter Renfrow comes back, which from his concussion, which doesn't really affect Davante Adams' IMO. I think that it affects other players. I think guys like Mac Hollins, he's still going to run around. Mac Hollins was a play. Even when Hunter Renfrow was playing, Mac Hollins was still playing like 80% of the snaps, running 30+ routes per game. But he was running on the outside, and Hunter Renfrow running on the inside, and Darren Waller running off the tight end spot. And they run 3 wide a lot. But none of that affects Davante Adams on the outside. So taking a quick look over at the target rates for Las Vegas, as you can see, Davante Adams with 31% roughly of the target market share. Mac Hollins, in the absence for like 2-3 weeks of Hunter Renfrow, has sustained a mountainous 18.8% of the target market share. I don't know if that's going to sustain with Renfrow coming back. Waller was 16.78. That's right about where I kind of expected him this year. Somebody had to take less of the targets. And then Hunter Renfrow at 10, but that really only includes the game and a half that he played in. This is a total on the season, not in games where they played. So Adams is certainly that type of player. If Adams has a monstrous game, right, he has that 125 yards, 2 touchdowns, Derek Carr is certainly going to be a play in that sort of situation way more often than he's not going to be a play. So I personally will tie the quarterback to the wide receiver captain, especially when it's a situation like Adams or Kupp or Travis Kelce, right? If Kelce has a monstrous day, we think that it's going to be pretty fortuitous for Patrick Mahomes as well. The best tight end in the game. Now, this is more powerful I mean, you could say Andrews, but it's been Kelce for years. And until Andrews really wrestles that away from Travis Kelce, especially with the way that the targets are shaping up this year, it's still Travis Kelce. So everybody else is kind of splitting, right? All the other players on this team, whether it's Juju, whether it's CEH, whether it's MVS, whether it's the litany of other players that are on this team that are just kind of running around and catching a random target here. Like, everybody seems to catch strays. The only guy who gets consistent service has been Travis Kelce. Taking a look at their targets, Travis Kelce with 34. Then you get Juju with 26, but he hasn't done a whole lot with him. I think that he is in the captain conversation for this game. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, 12. Hardman with 11.2. McKinnon, 7.7. Noah Gray, Jody Fortson. Sky Moore, we'll talk about him in a little bit. I think his snaps are going to increase moving forward. As we saw last game, he played like the highest percentage of snaps that he had played in any game in week 4. Maybe the rookie starts to come on here from weeks 5 through 10. As rookies tend to do, they tend to take on a bigger role as the season goes along. And especially when there's not that much else in front of them that's doing spectacular things. But Travis Kelce, as your captain, most certainly viable. There's one quarterback that I think is viable at captain this week. Now, look, Derek Carr, you could say that you like him at captain. He has not had bad games in his last 6 against Kansas City. He's done just fine. He's averaged just under 2 touchdown passes a game. But, like, typically when a quarterback does that, there's another optimal captain. They are not favored in this game. For him to be the optimal captain, he'd have to have like 350 yards with 4 touchdowns or 3 touchdowns, maybe 1 rushing. It's very difficult for him to end up as an optimal captain. So if I have Kelce at captain, I'm going to tie Mahomes to him because Mahomes probably had a pretty big day if Kelce was the optimal captain. But Patrick Mahomes is one of those unicorn quarterbacks that we talk about on these showdown slates, where typically 15% of showdown slates are won all in, every showdown included, with a captain quarterback. Quarterbacks are usually overplayed at captain, putting us on the wrong side of the math if we play them. But the quarterbacks who win as captain are guys who profile like Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, those unicorn type quarterbacks, Jalen Hurts, the guys who can take over a game. Kyler Murray is in that same sort of showdown boat. So Patrick Mahomes as your captain quarterback is certainly something that we can take into consideration when you look at his week 1 game, 365 touchdowns. And especially as much as he spreads it around, it's more viable than it was in previous years, where Patrick Mahomes would have a monstrous day, but Tyreek Hill would have a bigger day, right? Or Patrick Mahomes would have a good day, 300 yards, 3 touchdowns, and it was either Travis Kelce or Tyreek Hill that would eat it up. Now, because you've got so many other guys that are just eating up random touchdowns, Juju Smith-Schuster has yet to score one, even though he's gotten 8 targets in 3 of the 4 games. Has not really busted a great, but he hasn't been disappointing. He's disappointing fantasy managers because he's not scoring a touchdown, but like, he's the number 2 option in terms of target market share for them with 22.4% of the market share of targets. Still viable because at captain, because there's a multiple touchdown game coming for Juju Smith-Schuster. The problem is identifying exactly when it's going to be. And the problem with identifying exactly when it's going to be is because when you plug in Patrick Mahomes at captain, we're saying we're going to use every single one of his pass catchers as a part of that group and the kicker, right? So like, we're going to build that group that's going to include their kicker and basically every pass catcher. Kelce, Juju Smith-Schuster, Marquez Valdes-Scantling, Hardman. And then you've got all these other guys like Sky Moore, like Justin Watson, who essentially ended up being the winner for a showdown in week 2 against the Chargers. You had to have Justin Watson, who was like 200, and he caught a 41-yard touchdown on 2 targets. We're getting end zone targets and red zone usage for guys like Jody Fortson on low targets and routes. Noah Gray. None of these guys are in play for captain, but they speak to why it's more viable to have Patrick Mahomes at quarterback, because he can throw 3-4 touchdowns and be responsible for 3, 4, 5 touchdowns in a game and spread it across like 2, 3, 4 guys, as opposed to previous years where it basically always went to Kelce and Hill. So a couple of other captains that I think are in play. If you want to play Derek Carr, fine, but like, it's rough. He'd have to be chasing. You'd have to tell yourself the story of why you're going to do that. Like, You're going to have Adams, who's going to have a big day, but he can't have a big enough day to outplay Carr at captain unless you're doing it just for the savings. But the savings really aren't all that much when you look at their price at captain. You're saving like $1,800, right? So you've got him in there. You've got Waller in that group. You have Renfro in that group. Mac Hollins in that group. And then like random touchdown guys, as well as, you know, the kicker Carlson in that grouping as well. Two of those guys, and then at least one of the Chiefs coming back on the other side. And maybe it's more viable because the Chiefs spread it out that much. But if Mahomes has a 4 or 5 touchdown game and it spreads out, it's going to be Mahomes over Carr. So I may X out Carr from the captain. I'm not saying you have to, but that's a route that I may go. Josh Jacobs is in play for captain just on how much usage they've been funneling his way. 11 targets in the last 2 games. 28 carries against Denver, a very tough defense on the ground. The Chiefs way more exploitable. However, running backs on the road and as underdogs don't really profile all that much. He's going to be really low played, so you will have an edge there if you wanted to get completely different. If you're going to play the angle that, look, you think the Raiders are going to win this game, and in the case that the Raiders win that game, what happened? That could mean that Josh Jacobs is definitely a viable captain in that particular situation. Not unlike where, you know, Jacksonville was 7-point favorites today against Houston, and Houston beat them, and Dameon Pierce had another really solid game. If you're building that game script building is totally in play when it comes to building your showdown lineups and selecting captains. Darren Waller hasn't seen the end zone all that much this year, hasn't seen a monster game, especially in the absence of Hunter Renfro. That's been the most disappointing part about it, is in the absence of Hunter Renfro, it was Mac Hollins who took a big step forward in terms of usage, at least for 2 of those 3 games, and not Darren Waller, which was really, really weird. Now, I don't expect a big game like we saw in week 3 from Mac Hollins. He's going to be doing more of this, just running around, running wind sprints, catching random targets. And the problem is he is now priced up to a point at 5,000 where it's a bit more restrictive in Showdown than when he was like a $200 to $1,200 player on Showdown, when you could actually throw him in there and have some sort of edge. The other random kind of captain plays on this slate, I talked about Jacobs, Waller, CEH. I mean, he had a big game against Tampa Bay because they got up like 20 points early, and it was all about the running game, and it got split between CEH and Pacheco. Pacheco not really playing enough snaps to warrant being in a captain situation, but 5 touchdowns. He's always in the hunt for that because of how good this offense is, and as I said, how much they spread around. 3 receiving touchdowns so far for CEH, less than 10 carries in 3 of the 4 games. It's a bit precarious. I think he's definitely somebody you're going to play in the flex in a lot of your lineups this week, but not somebody that I really wanted to take as much of a flyer at captain. If I'm going to take a random flyer at captain, it's going to be on somebody like MVS on a cheaper play. Like, I typically tend to stick to the players that I think could end the day as the highest scoring player on the slate. Now, MVS has that in his profile if he can link up on a long touchdown or 2, but it would take 2 for it to happen. So like, this is something where I think a lot of people are going to be looking this route to try and capture his big play upside, his big splash upside, and we really haven't seen it all that much yet. This was the argument I made in the offseason where people were saying, wow, MVS is now going to be on the Chiefs and he's going to be starting for the Chiefs, and it's a really great situation for him. He literally started the last 2 years playing with the NFL MVP 2 years in a row, and still wasn't that great a fantasy play on a week in, week out basis. So like, if you want to take a dart throw on him as a captain, dart throw in flex, he's definitely not a dart throw in flex. He's a core flex play. But if you wanted to dart throw him at captain, I don't hate it, but realize that it is a little bit thin. The dart throw value plays on this slate, players that I think could be less than like 20%. The first one's going to be Mecole Hardman, playing like 50% of the snaps. At least he's on the field. He's just not that good a football player. He's really fast, and that's nice. And you get kick returning possibilities for him. So if you are playing Hardman with the defense, like if you say any lineup that has Mecole Hardman, increase the defensive projection by like 10 or 15%. In the case that Mecole Hardman returns a kick for a touchdown, then great, you get the double dip there. We've done that with Duvernay in the past. It's not really a play that I make all that often, but like, somebody who's on the field definitely has more of a chance of scoring than somebody who's not. Somebody who has been on the field but might be seeing less snaps right now, at least he did last week, was Jerick McKinnon, who had been very involved in weeks 1 and 2. He's sitting at $3K this week. And then, like I said, they priced up Pacheco to 4,800. He's right out of the value list. Not playing a ton of snaps every single week. Looks really good when he gets the ball, but like priced at a point where that might hold his percentage down, but you're eating up a lot of salary to get there. And he's got to break a long touchdown to get you there. The players that I like more in the dart throw range, guys like Sky Moore, who saw his season high on targets last week in that blistering of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, saw his highest percentage of snaps in any game last week as well. Rookies do tend to see their snap rates and their involvement and their routes run grow as the season goes along. It would also not shock me if Sky Moore saw less snaps. Like if this was just a 1 week spike against Tampa Bay because of the game script and situation, that could be very much the truth. I think that he's going to take on a larger role in this offense as the season goes along, just because I think he is a better route runner and a better pass catcher than somebody like Mecole Hardman. But Mecole Hardman has a better grasp currently on the playbook. We'll see if that persists. So Sky Moore is in that group. And then the total dart throw guys at tight end, Noah Gray, 600. You're not getting very much out of him. You're praying for a touchdown. They lined him up in a fake play under center last week and plunged him into the end zone. Every single point matters when you're playing showdown. So like one catch, one touchdown from any of the guys that are 1K and below matters a whole hell of a lot. Jody Fortson, one target in 3 games, but 2 catches, both for a touchdown. He is somebody that they use specifically in their jumbo package when they get around the goal line and run a lot of play action that ends in Jody Fortson getting targets at the back of the end zone on that little West Coast play, right? Where they fake it, they do the play action, the running back runs to the flat, and then the tight end runs to the back of the end zone behind him. And that's kind of that Fortson route that they utilize around the goal line. It's part of their goal line package. So like I said, every touchdown matters, every point matters. They're not going to be great, really highly played guys because they're not really great plays. But you're going to have to take shots on that one guy who's under 20% in every single lineup. If you've had a good year, if you had a great week in week 5, definitely go over to smizzle.tv/charity. Make a donation to No Kid Hungry. They are providing school breakfast and lunches to food insecure kids across America. We are trying to raise $50,000 from our community. You can see we just passed $26,000 on the season, and every $10,000 that the community raises, I will be matching $10,000 myself. The next match is at $30,000. We're $4,000 away from the next $10,000 from me. Every single donation is 100% tax deductible. All the donations go straight through Tiltify, not through me. They will send you all the tax paperwork that you need. So go to smizzle.tv/charity and donate to No Kid Hungry today. Let's go over to Fantasy Labs and take a look at what their optimizer brings us. I've loaded up my settings for this. I kind of talked you through all of them. I'm not going to allow the kicker and defense to be the captain. If you wanted to go that route, I know that it's been at or near the top a couple of times so far this season. If that's the way you want to roll, that's the way you roll. I tend to not do it because typically speaking, it wins like 2% of the time, but over 10% of the field is on those plays. So I will happily give up those games where a kicker or defense is the optimal captain. I'm just not going to win those showdowns. That's just the way that it goes. Pair your captain kicker with at least 2 of their wide receiver, tight ends, or kickers. I don't force a running back into my quarterback at captain group. I also don't make a rule that says they can't end up there. I just force the pass catchers with that quarterback at captain. Pair the quarterback captain with at least one of the skill position players from the other team, not including defense or special teams. If you have a captain wide receiver, make sure their quarterback's in the lineup. Captain tight end, make sure their quarterback's in the lineup. And at most, one defense or kicker from the same game. And then I add this custom rule that says at least one player at the skill positions, running back, wide receiver, tight end, where the projected ownership percentage is less than 20% to make sure that my lineups get different. Apply those settings. We'll set it to build 150 lineups. I'll just sort by projected points for this. Go to smizzle.tv/labs with an uppercase L. You will get a discounted membership to Fantasy Labs. You're only playing NFL, that's fine. This is the only way that you can get the NFL only is through my link. But if you play any other sport, they have projections for NFL, college football. NBA season is like a week and a half away. Baseball is in the playoffs. They still have projections and a lineup builder for that. Golf every weekend. NHL is about to start. NASCAR and MMA. Your best deal is that 6-month deal for like $250. I don't know exactly. It's $250 or $249 or $259. That is the best deal is that 6-month. And realize that you do have to massage these lineup builder built lineups that you are creating. It's not just as simple as click generate and then just print money. You have to spend a lot of time making sure that you have the allocations and the combinations that you want. So I wish you the best of luck. Look out for the recap video on the Fantasy Football channel. Look for another video right there.
He's a legend.